Hello, this is astrologer coach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming new moon in 4 degrees of Virgo, which will be exact on August 27th at 4:17 a.m. Eastern Time and 9:17 a.m. London time. Okay, so of course, every new moon cycle is always a new beginning for the new month for the next 28 days. But before we jump in, I just want to say that I have a big announcement to make. And so please stay tuned until the end or skip to the part of the video right before I talk about setting intentions if you're curious what it's about right away. Now, the new moon is a good time to go within and to plant seeds for anything we would like to begin over the next 28 days. And therefore, we also do new moon intentions. And we will be mentioning the best and most potent times to set those intentions towards the end of the video, as always. And, feel free to use the timestamps that are in the description part of the video below to watch this video in smaller sequences or jump straight to a part of the video that you're interested in. All right. Now, the new moon makes a strong square to Mars in Gemini. And this creates some challenges for the next 28 days. Mars will be in this fidgety sign for a total of 7 months because of its retrograde phase in late October. And the square will only last until September 2nd. However, since it's part of this new moon chart, we will feel the impact of this square for the next 28 days, so until September 25th. Now, the good news is that Mercury, which is the ruler of Virgo, which has an important part to play in this new moon chart, so Mercury is making a trine, which is a supportive, harmonious aspect to Mars in Gemini. And Jupiter in Aries makes a sextile, which is an opportune aspect to Mars in Gemini in this new moon chart. So it's not all bad news. We'll go into the details in a moment, what all of that means. We'll unpack all of that. But first, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Virgo energy for this new moon. And if you're already familiar with what that is, then feel free to skip that part. All right, so Virgo provides an opportunity to learn about being of service and what it might mean to strengthen our focus on improving our daily routines, to get organized, for example, and also taking care of any health matters, anything that makes our body-mind connection more whole, more complete, more powerful. So this new moon cycle will be a great time to begin new projects that demand attention to detail. Anything connected to list making, taking pride in smaller accomplishments. So we're going more into the details of things. And we might also want to start a new health regime, perhaps something that's connected to what we eat, our diet, how we exercise, in what fashion, what works best for our body. And we could also set up specific routines that help us manage our lives in a more constructive and mindful way. So being really mindful how we use our instrument, this body, and how we connect our day-to-day life with what we like to accomplish long term. That's really what Virgo is interested in. Now, this cycle is all about handling the nitty-gritty details of our day-to-day life in an organized, step-by-step fashion so we can free our mind from clutter, right? So we don't have to think of every little detail every single day, but that we kind of find a way to organize things for ourselves so that we can improve our day-to-day in a way where the mind has a little bit more ease and doesn't have to problem solve all the time. So where could we use more space in our lives? Whether that's connection to work routines, whether that's connection to health routines, our own body. So just think about that. Where could you make some improvements during the next 28 days? Now, there are also some things that we want to watch out for with the Virgo energy. For example, Virgo can be, because it's so detail-oriented, sometimes we sweat the details, right? We get a little bit too worried about things, about the little things. And we can also sometimes be extra critical of ourselves and others when something doesn't get done right or the way we'd like it to be done. So this is just something to kind of be aware of and conscious of within the next 28 days. If you observe that within yourself or within your relationships with other peoples, or especially co-workers or people that work for you, just be aware of that. That's a tendency that can come up. Now, a great way to step into the higher vibration of Virgo is to recognize as best as you can that humility, self-improvement, and being of service brings you closer to your inner divinity and your soul's path. So it's really about learning that as we're going about looking at improving things or organizing things differently, that we're staying connected to the heart energy, that we're staying connected to, being in service to something larger than ourselves. So ask yourself, how could I as a spirit being operate more effectively in the physical world? Might tweaking my daily routines help me function better in the physical world? And might that also support me in being of service? And what benefits might I reap if I could better discern between the essential and the redundant? And so I love to pose coaching questions with the current energies that we're connecting with over the next 28 days, because I have found that coaching questions can really support us in engaging with the energies on a more profound level. You can start to work with the questions, and by working with the questions on a very intuitive and investigative level, you can then really align yourself beautifully with whatever is coming up this month. So we'll have more coaching questions. And if you're interested in having these coaching questions in writing so you can journal with them or work with them more closely via, either meditating with them, journaling, like I said, or just kind of like maybe even engaging with the questions with other people and brainstorming, like how you want to connect to these questions. If you want to do that in a group of people, that's all possible. If you'd like to have the questions in writing, they are available via my new moon article on my website at astrologercoach.com. All my members have currently access to those articles. If you're currently not a member, then you only have access to the new moon video and not to the articles yet. So feel free to check out my levels of membership and see if that might be something you might want to consider for yourself. And let's go back to the new moon energies that are coming up for this whole month, because there's a lot that we want to engage with, that we want to get in alignment with, so we can move with the energies more beautifully. And the biggest thing is the new moon in Virgo makes a challenging aspect to the Mars in Gemini, because that aspect is quite exact. And so what we can ask ourselves with this aspect is, am I staying busy just for the sake of busyness? Mars in Gemini likes to be busy. Am I exhausting myself doing? Am I judging myself or others? Is there sort of like is there a conflict of some sort where I'm becoming judgmental with myself or with other people? And where is my mind on overdrive? And really use these coaching questions as you're dealing with this challenging energy between new moon in Virgo and Mars in Gemini. And you'll see how it shows up in your life. As that shows up, really work with these questions. And could I try to engage with life and others 5% more from a place of curiosity? As we go into curiosity and open-mindedness, we might experience life very differently than if we go from a place of we already know what's going on here, or already have the answer, or I already know what this is about. So if we just keep an open mind, and this is what Gemini, of course, invites us to do, and then could I let go of my need to judge and know better just for one day? And could I repeat that practice for the next 28 days? So And the reason why I'm posing the question in that particular way is because, if I would say to your mind right now, could you do this for the next 28 days? Your mind might be like, well, that's just overwhelmed, too much to do, and who knows if I can achieve that even, right? So I always invite people to do baby steps, especially with practices that challenge our status quo or what we're used to doing. And, judgment is something that can come from a place of autopilot, where we don't even know that we're doing it. It's just part of how we're thinking. So if we can just do something like that, even just for one day or even just for half a day, right? Or 10 minutes, that's already a huge accomplishment because it interrupts that autopilot. So could I let go of my need to judge and know better just for one day, right? And this can show up in our work with other people. This can show up in our engaging with life or with what goes on out there in the world. This could come up with our relationships. It could come up with us relationship to ourselves. So it could come up in a lot of different ways. So just pay attention to, when that comes up and see if you can just experiment with, letting go of that just for one day, doing that for one day. And then could you repeat that practice for the next 28 days? Now, this square might stir up impatience. Mars, right, can be very impatient, can create frustrations, Mars. And in particular, when things don't line up perfectly right away. And of course, that's connected to the Virgo energy. We want things to be perfect there. Now, we may feel a little scattered brained as well, or all over the map with this combo, because, Virgo wants to, go into that detailed place, but then Gemini wants to just stay busy and wants to just do as much as possible. So you might feel a little bit all over the map. Now, you might feel driven by a restlessness as well. Mars in Gemini can feel quite restless. And also the desire to do something, this restless desire to do something. We're also invited to discern what works best for our whole well-being. And this is where Virgo comes in. Virgo is very interested in wholeness, to really bring our mind and body into unison and into harmony, and to also come from a place of neutrality and observation in how we can best do that. So discernment is important, and to see what works and what doesn't work is important, and observation is important. Now notice when your busy mind distracts you from being discerning. So sometimes we can get so busy in our lives that we can't even say anymore what works and what doesn't work because we're too frazzled and too involved in life that we can't even take that pause to discern and to say, hey, what's actually working here? So notice when your busy mind distracts you from being discerning. And when that shows up within the next 4 weeks after the new moon becomes exact, ask yourself, what is helpful rather than wasteful? And this could be, you could really just let that question sit and just meditate on that, if you're feeling frazzled in some way. And what might shift if I trusted in the timing of everything that is currently unfolding? Sometimes we get so busy and we get so focused on getting to complete some things or do something that we forget that sometimes, there is a divine timing for everything. So what might shift if I trusted the timing of everything that is currently unfolding? And what if my mind could engage with curiosity and be discerning at the same time? So how can we bring those two together, that Gemini energy and that Virgo energy? How can we make space for both? So Gemini wants curiosity and wants to engage with life, full on with lots of curiosity. And Virgo wants to discern and wants to make sure that we only focus on the things that actually work for us. So how can we make space for both of these energies? And how might new, fresh, and practical ideas create progress in my daily routines? So Mars in Gemini invites us to create these new, fresh ideas, right? And how can we sort of like ground them in practicality? That's what Virgo is interested in. Virgo wants us to be practical and wants us to bring that to our daily routines. And where might I learn something new about myself and my body that would change my relationship to health and well-being? And this is a very important and very powerful question these days, right? Because we're all dealing with the need to improve our health, to improve our well-being and our relationship to well-being, our relationship to a healthy experience in the world, not just physically, but also mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And Virgo is interested in that wholeness, in that bringing all these parts together. So where might I learn something new about myself and my body that would change my relationship to health and well-being? So really engage with that question. Maybe journal on that question every day and see what shows up. Now, Mercury, like I mentioned earlier, is the ruler of Virgo, and it's still moving through its pre-shadow phase until September 9th. This means for the next 2 weeks, we are traveling through territory that will be significant even past this moon phase that we're going to be starting with the new moon in Virgo, because we need to revisit certain things during the Mercury retrograde phase. So on September 9th starts the Mercury retrograde phase that will last until October 2nd. And the pre-shadow phase that we're currently in that will last until September 9th is the same territory that we will also move through as Mercury goes retrograde. And then one more time when Mercury goes direct. Now, to find out how we can use Mercury's pre-shadow phase to our advantage, feel free to check out my webinar that I just recorded recently, Mercury's pre-shadow phase in Virgo Libra, to see how this relates to your birth chart and what you might want to focus on. And you can purchase that webinar on my website on the webinar page, but you can also click on the link below this video to get that webinar. It's available until September 9th only. Now, the other thing we will also cover is Mercury's retrograde phase in our next webinar, which is our next forecasting forum on September 10th. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. Now, Mercury is currently in Libra at the time of the new moon and makes a wide opposition to Jupiter in Aries and forms a trine with Mars in Gemini. So let's unpack that to see what all of that means. Now, Mercury's opposition to Jupiter indicates that we need to find a balance, because it's an opposition, right? A balance between two very different energies. We need to integrate something that is opposite each other. So on the one hand, we are seeking a new perspective and approach towards our own persona or our own personal goals. When I say persona, I mean the human persona, the thing that we identify with as a human being that is beyond our spirit being, the stuff that we've been conditioned into, the identity that we call, our name. In my case, the identity that I call Sonja. And then on the other hand, we also need to communicate and share and create harmonious collaborations with other people. So there's more of a focus on other people and relationships. So again, on the one hand, it's about seeking a new perspective and approach towards ourselves, our persona, our own personal goals. And on the other hand, a need to communicate and find harmonious collaborations with other people. Now, self-growth and learning about collaborating with others is a strong preference right now for the next 28 days with this opposition. What you can ask yourself here is, how might we be able to support each other on our self-improvement journeys or on our self-growth journeys? And what if taking a broader perspective towards my personal goals and my passions actually made for more harmonious conversations or connections with other people in my relationships? So, and what I mean by broader perspective is like, can you see the bigger picture? Can you see what it might be all about? If we look at it from a place of like, what is this really about for me as a human being, for me as a person? What am I trying to, where am I trying to go in terms of the longer vision that I have for myself? What's the bigger perspective? And could I allow others to share something with me that might contribute to a more extensive exploration of my persona or my identity here in this body on this earth? And how about vice versa? Could I share something with others that might contribute to a more extensive exploration of someone else's persona, identity, or personal goals? So how can we support each other? How can we create that for ourselves, and how can we create that for other people? How can we let other people support us, and how can we support other people, right? Now, Mercury also makes that trine to Mars in Gemini, and that gives us the opportunity to raise our mental vibrations, making it easier to connect with others while staying open-minded. So we want to stay open-minded as we're connecting, communicating, sharing with other people. Now, collaboration comes more easily as long as we remember to stay open-minded and curious. And so you want to ask yourself with this trine, what collaborations will best serve me over the next 4 weeks? And where can I learn something about relationships or myself? And then who might welcome a dialogue that is open-minded and creates connection? So who are the people that we want to connect with that might actually appreciate that kind of dialogue? Now, Mars in Gemini also sextiles Jupiter in Aries, like I mentioned earlier already. And that makes these next 28 days a good time to promote anything we want to share in connection with self-growth or learning a new skill. Something that we can learn for ourselves, or something that we can maybe teach someone. So ask yourself, what could I share or learn right now that would help expand my perspectives or the perspectives of others? And in what ways could I set an example that would support a learning experience for others? And what kind of perspectives about myself or attitudes towards life would support a beneficial outcome in my daily interactions with other people? So these are some really wonderful questions you can journal on or meditate on as you are moving through the next 28 days after the new moon becomes exact. And I just want to remind you guys here that it is always best to ask coaching questions after the new moon becomes exact already, not before. So after August 27th. All right, so the last thing I want to mention here with this new moon chart is Venus in Leo. Because Venus in Leo makes some very important aspects as well. She opposes Saturn in Aquarius, and she squares the Uranus North Node alignment in Taurus at the time of the new moon. So consequently, she also squares the South Node in Scorpio, since the moon nodes are always opposite each other. And this creates a similar dynamic to what we already experienced with the last full moon in Aquarius and the previous new moon in Leo. So the last two lunations, we already had this kind of grand cross configuration. And the only difference would be now we have Venus involved in this grand cross instead of the Sun or Mercury like in previous lunations. So this combination asks us to grow and stretch beyond what we know and have experienced in the past regarding our relationships, especially our romantic relationships. And so what we might experience here is that priorities may shift in our lives with other people, We could also be withdrawing or holding back a little as we attempt to figure out what we want and need in our relationships and what we enjoy. And this is not the best time to take things too personally. So if you experience in a relationship that somebody is withdrawing from you or is getting a little bit, they need some space from you or something, just remember that this might just be something that they're going through, something that they're needing to explore for themselves. So taking things personally might not be beneficial at that time. But then again, when is ever a good time to be taking things personally anyways? And maybe you're the one who needs to explore with slowing things down a little bit, or taking some space, or taking some time off, or re-evaluating, how you want a certain relationship to look like, or is there still any joy in that relationship, or how can you create more joy in that relationship, and so on, right? So ask yourself, could I practice keeping my mind and heart 5% more open for the next 28 days? And the reason why that question is really important in connection with this Grand Cross is because if you can keep your mind and heart 5% more open for the next 28 days, whatever you're experiencing in your relationship with other people will go a lot better, and will support you with that stretching and with those challenges. Now, what are the current limitations in my life trying to teach me? That's another thing you can ask yourself. So if something shows up in form of a limitation with other people, in connection with, romantic relationships, just see what's the lesson here. What are you trying to learn from this interaction or from this relationship? And how might taking a deep breath and holding off on impulsive decision making about any kind of relationship, or maybe even also about finances, support my current situation? So if you're experiencing something that feels challenging or that's stretching you, see if you can take a deep breath. See if you can hold off from making impulsive decisions, whether that's in regards to relationships or finances. And then the last thing, or the last two things you can ask yourself here is, might taking this deep breath also help me in dealing with any feelings of instability, restlessness, or uncertainty? And here it's important to remember, we're living in uncertain times right now. We're living in times where we're readjusting ourselves to a new future. Our future is going to look very different from what we can even possibly imagine that it will look like. We're recalibrating ourselves so much right now that it creates discomfort, it creates uncertainty, it creates restlessness. And so might taking this deep breath, on a regular basis, possibly also, might taking this deep breath also help me in dealing with any feelings of instability, restlessness, or uncertainty. And if I trusted life and it's unfolding completely, if we trusted that whatever is currently recalibrating, that it really needs to happen, this is for the best and highest good for ourselves and everybody else involved out there in the world. If I trusted life and it's unfolding completely, what would I do then? So allow yourself to make impulsive decisions from a place of tension and anxiety. See if you can really truly take that deep breath, calm, trust completely, and then see what you might want to do then, once you've felt this complete trust in life. Now, that's it for the new moon. But to sum it all up, the message of this new moon is pretty loud and clear. It spotlights how less can be more. We need to see how we deal with clutter and busyness and stress, and how this translates into a more satisfying and meaningful life long term if we learn how to adjust ourselves in that way. And it is in our best and highest interest over the next 28 days to learn how to use our rational minds to develop our capacity to analyze and improve daily routines, to assimilate and serve. And if we also learn how to let go of needing to criticize others or denigrate ourselves, we have a chance for peace of mind and an experience of connection rather than separation. And this is important because when we criticize a lot, whether that's others or ourselves, we experience separation. And when we experience separation, that's where we start to feel unhealthy. Our mind goes into overdrive. We get anxious. That's where we start to feel not whole anymore. Separation creates this fragmented self. So check to see if you can let go of criticizing others and denigrating yourself. And once we understand the inseparability of body and mind, how they are connected in so many ways, how healing and wholeness is connected as well, we can start to improve our health, and our relationship to our body-mind will shift. And of course, that will then, in the long run, create more peace of mind and more happiness. So ask yourself, when I start to feel a sense of separation within myself or with others, could I experiment with refraining from criticism towards myself or others just for one day? And what does wholeness mean to me? What does that word mean? What does that represent? Feel free to journal on that or to meditate on that, and let it be a process, right? Let it be something that comes to you as a process, not just one answer. And then how can my mind support my body and vice versa? How can my mind support my body and vice versa? How can my body support my mind? And that means we need to listen to our body in order for it to support anything. So be mindful. Slow down if you can. Be mindful. Dedicate yourself to what's vital with compassion in your heart. Remember that perfection is not a goal. It is a journey. It's a process, right? It's never just, like A to B. It is a journey. It is a process. And ask yourself, what if I favored progress over perfection? And what does being humble mean to me? What does that mean? And how could I release old traumas? What if I discerned what's truly important to me and focused on that and making improvements right there? What's truly important to me? And how do I share my thoughts and findings with other people? Now, when life becomes uncomfortable, and this might happen, right? Life has a tendency sometimes to be uncomfortable, and especially right now as we're recalibrating ourselves on a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual level. When life becomes uncomfortable, simplify and be patient. We are changing and growing in ways we cannot comprehend right now. So really trust the process. Trust this beautiful process. It might feel a little uncomfortable, but it is a process that is very much needed right now so that we can have a much, much better future for ourselves, for humanity, for everybody here on planet Earth. Now, if you do have an ascendant or personal planets in 2 to 6 degrees of Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, then this new moon will have greater impact for you personally. But even if you don't have planets or points in those signs, you can still take a look in your natal chart. Where does 4 degrees of Virgo land in your birth chart? Take a look at that and see what house, what area of life is impacted in your own birth chart, because that is where you want to focus for the next 28 days in terms of making improvements, in terms of having a more holistic approach, a more holistic relationship with your own body and with that area of your life in particular. Now, if you don't know how to look that up in your birth chart, feel free to watch my video, How to Read Your Birth Chart, which is available for free on my website. You can go to that on my homepage at astrologercoach.com. If you scroll down to a window that says free class, click on that and you can watch that video and it will show you exactly how to do that. Now, the announcement that I've been promising at the very beginning of the video, the time is here now, right before we go into our intention settings. What I would like to talk about is that with the current moon nodes in Taurus, Scorpio, we are invited to investigate ourselves in a much deeper process, on a much deeper level, and release any emotional baggages from the past or any inauthentic or even toxic connections with other people, so we can step into greater abundance and have a realizations of our worthiness on this physical plane, in this physical body. And this is a very beautiful journey that we're on right now with these moon nodes, but it is also sometimes a difficult journey to be on. And I have experienced this firsthand this year due to some unforeseen circumstances in my life. I have had to do some very deep inner work myself, that Scorpio South Node stuff. I had to really deal with that. And also, I noticed that also with some of my clients, that some of this very deep work showed up. That so I had to engage with some of my clients on a very deep level as well. And the results from doing that work have been really phenomenal so far. And because of that, it sparked the idea for me to create 2 new coaching packages that can really support this more profound and more meaningful journey in our lives, that we really want to get to a place of abundance and worthiness in this lifetime. And one of the new offerings is a life crisis package, which gives you some very intensive support for 21 days. In other words, 3 weeks with me. And I created this package for anyone who's going through a massive shift in their lives. Anything that feels paralyzing without the proper support. So that could be something like uncoupling, health issues, or loss of any kind that feels really intense. So if you're experiencing anything like that, or this is something that comes up in the future, then this might be a really great package for you. It's called the Life Crisis Package. Now, the other package that I created is the 90-day VIP package that will provide exclusive coaching for 3 months. And it provides transformation somewhere you have felt stuck and unable to move forward in your life. And so even though you've tried, you've given it your best, but you still feel like you're not quite able to get to that next level where you like to be going. So for example, that could be in connection with a career goal or changing careers, could be in connection with your love life, in connection with conscious uncoupling that you want to get to a plan, or you're not quite there yet, but you want to get to that place of healthy conscious uncoupling. Finances, health, parenting, anything that's present in your life where you really wish to have better results or greater transformation. Now, all of these VIP packages are described in more detail on my website, on my coaching page, if you want to find out more about them. The coaching technique that I use is very gentle, and I always try to approach my coaching from a holistic place. So that means spiritual, emotional, mental, physical is all connected to the coaching that we're doing. And then I also wanted to mention that since I can only accommodate 1 person for this life crisis package and 3 people for the VIP package at any one time, in terms of the timing that it provides to work with someone, if you are interested in any of these packages, please reach out right away. Once all of these 4 slots are filled, anyone else will be added to a waiting list. So definitely feel free to reach out. Even if you think that I've already filled those spots, there will be a waiting list as well. Now, remember, this is the time to invest in yourself. The North Node is in Taurus, which means that we want to truly connect to ourselves, to our talents, to our worthiness. We want to really create more abundance in our lives, on all levels, in all areas of our lives. So if this is something that calls to you, definitely reach out. You can email me at info@astrologercoach.com. And if this doesn't call to you right now, then, feel free to just put it on the back burner, and maybe, a month or 2 months from now, this is something that might come up for you. Or if you know of anybody that you feel like this would be a great fit, then please let them know about it, because this is a great opportunity to really make big strides. Now, let's talk about setting intentions. Now, the new moon is also the best time to set some powerful intentions for this month's moon cycle. And intentions are always best done soon after the new moon becomes exact, so not before. And definitely not during a moonward, of course, phase. So this month, the best and most potent time to set intentions would be any time between 4:11 a.m. on August 27th, so nice and early in the morning, August 27th, until 11:08 p.m. the next day on August 28th. So we have almost 2 days, right, to set these intentions without interruption, without any moonward, of course. And these times are New York time zone. So if you live in a time zone other than New York time zone or East Coast, US East Coast time zone, feel free to join me on my Facebook fan page or on my Twitter page. I will be posting reminders on November 27th and 28th throughout the day to let you know when it's time to set your intentions. So once you see those reminders pop up, you can sit down and just write down your intentions. And if you need more information about setting intentions, how to do that, and what's the best way to make them most powerful, feel free to read my articles on setting new moon intentions, either on my website, or you can also click on the link below this video. I will have a link for the article down there as well for you. And if you want to sign up for a free monthly newsletter, that's always available, of course. You can go to my homepage at astrologercoach.com, sign up there, or you can email me at info@astrologercoach.com and just write newsletter in the subject line. The newsletter has special offers. It has my new moon videos. It has announcements. It goes out once or twice a month, usually, sometimes more often, depending on if there's something special that I need to announce. Now, if you have any questions about this new moon or astrology in general, feel free to reach out to me anytime to info@astrologercoach.com. If you have any personal questions that would require for me to take a look at your birth chart, there are 2 ways to engage with that. You can either book a reading with me on my website, or you can book a reading with Leah, who is a soul-based astrologer that I trained myself. So she's very good at this as well. So you can do a reading with me or with Leah, or you can ask questions connected to what's coming up within the next 30 to 40 days when you join my next monthly forecasting forum on September 10th. I always take questions in advance that will then get included in the webinar. So even if you can't make it live, you can always watch the recording. We will focus on the upcoming Mercury retrograde phase in Libra Virgo, which will happen from September 9th until October 2nd. And also, we will focus on how to make the best use of Mars's pre-shadow phase in Gemini, which will happen from September 3rd until October 30th, because at that point, Mars will go retrograde on October 30th. So the pre-shadow phase, we'll talk about how to make best use of that. And there's also an early bird special available until September 7th at midnight. So feel free to take advantage of that if you're not currently a star member on my website. And once you're registered, you can ask a question in advance. Just email me by September 9th, by the end of the workday, and I will include that question into the webinar. And my members will hear from me in 2 weeks around the time of the full moon via the full moon article, so we can look at how far we've come since setting our new moon intentions. And everyone else will get to connect with me in 4 weeks with the next new moon video. All right, as always, please stay focused on your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. All of this will guarantee that you stay healthy and whole. So really do your best to really connect to yourself on a holistic level. All right, much love to all of you. I'm astrologer coach Sonja Francis.